Om. Om. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Vakratunda Mahakaya Suryakoti Samaprabha Nirvignam Kuru Me Deva Sarvakaryeshu Sarvada Sarasvati Namastubhyam Varade Kamarupini Vidyarambham Karishyami Siddhir Bhavatu Me Sada समस्तजनकल्याणे निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरं मूकं करोति वाचालं पङ्गुं लङ्घयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे परमानन्दमाधवम् Paramananda Madhavam. Okay, so we invoke Bhagwan's grace, Puja Gurudev's blessings as we start chapter 8 of the Bhagavad Gita. So I know we haven't seen each other in about 3 months. So we'll do a brief review so that we're all on the same page. Some of us might not have opened the Bhagavad Gita since we stopped class. So let's do a brief review and then we'll make our way to chapter 8. Okay, I'm going to share my screen now so you'll see it. All right, here we go. Okay. So, as you know, Bhagavad Gita starts chapter 1 with Arjuna's Vishada. Vishada or grief. He's confused about his dharma. He's not sure what to do. And as Arjuna breaks down, Bhagavan Krishna just listens to him. He's just listening the entire time to Arjuna. Then once Arjuna is well settled, Bhagavan Krishna gives him the highest knowledge that you are the Atman, you are the self. You are pure consciousness. That is your real nature. And knowing this, you should not grieve. You are not the body. You are not this jeeva. Knowing this, don't grieve. And then Arjuna gets this knowledge. And in chapter 3, Karma Yoga, Arjuna has a question saying that you told me that I am Atman. I am the pure being. I am the self. So why should I do anything in the world? Why are you telling me to fight this battle, to fight this war? And Sri Krishna said, because Karma Yoga, the yoga of action, is necessary to purify the mind to arrive at Jnana Yoga. So everyone has to go through this process of Karma Yoga, which is a purifying process, so that the mind becomes subtle enough to understand who we are. So there's no confusion. And then Arjuna asks, but I see that there's so many realized beings. It's not like they're sitting and meditating all the time. They're actually acting. What is that? So in chapter 4, Bhagavan Krishna talks about Jnana Karma Sannyasa Yoga, which means that action is not really about movement, but it's the presence of doership. So when there is a presence of doership, then that action binds. But when there's no presence of doership, that action does not bind. So this is how the realized beings act in the world, because certainly nobody can exist without acting. Then he goes into chapter 5, which is Karma Sannyasa Yoga. And he says that at some point in time, it is true that one will have to go within. And here, everybody has to go through Karma Yoga. Here, everybody has to go through Karma Yoga, either in the beginning or in the later stage of life. So when somebody goes through Karma Yoga in the beginning stage of life, then they are ready for Karma Sannyasa, or to renounce worldly life. But when someone goes through Karma Yoga at the later stages of life, then they just should stay in Karma Yoga, and from Karma Yoga move on to Jnana Yoga. So here he talks about Karma Sannyasa and Karma Yoga in chapter 5. Then in chapter 6 is Atma Samyama Yoga, or the yoga of meditation. Why is it that at some point in time, right, when we gain this knowledge, why is it that we have to withdraw? When we gain this knowledge, in the process of it, there's some point in time where we have to withdraw. And after that withdrawal period, definitely then the realized being can be however they are. There's no barrier on that. But when we're gaining this knowledge, we have to withdraw for some time because it requires deep meditation. And in chapter 6, he talked about meditation. He talked about how important it is to do our dharma and karma yoga so that the mind would be quiet to meditate. Because only the ones who have fulfilled their dharma, they are the ones who are able to sit quietly. So here we talked about Arurukshu and Yoga Arudha. And if you don't remember these terms, or if you were not here, it's okay. Don't worry. The beauty about Bhagavad Gita is that everything will come again in all of the chapters. So now the question comes for the devotee is, I'm sitting quietly and I'm meditating, but what exactly should I meditate on? And here we started chapter 7. Chapter 7 is Jnana Vijnana Yoga. This is the last chapter we did together, the yoga of knowledge and wisdom. And this chapter explains what God is. So here, Bhagwan says, first, I am Apara Prakriti. Apara Prakriti means the lower nature. Here's my lower nature. My lower nature is on the 5 subtle elements that you see expressing everywhere. Space, air, fire, water, earth. This is me. And the mind, intellect, ego. This is my lower nature. And my para prakriti, or my higher nature, is that consciousness expressing as jeeva, as that individuality in everybody. This is my higher nature. And I am the cause, the sustenance, and delusion of the entire world. This is who I am. And Bhagwan says, actually, other than me, there is nothing. I alone appear as everything. Just like in dream state, I alone appear as the entire dream world, dream objects, dream being. Other than me, there is nothing. So he talks about Bhagavan Swarupa, or the nature of God. What do we meditate on? What do we think about? So we think about God as that ultimate truth. We think about God as the origin, the sustenance, the dissolution of the world. We think about God as that which expresses through this entire world in different names and forms. And we also talked about God in creation as Vibhuti, the strength of the strength, the knowledge of the knowledge, right? The splendor of the splendid. We talked about all of these things in chapter 7. And then in chapter 7, we also saw Bhakta Swarupa. All right, now I know the nature of God, but what are the nature of those who worship God? So there's Artha, those who worship God in distress. Artharthi, those who worship God because they want something from Bhagavan. They want a family, they want good health, good life. They worship Bhagavan. Jignasu, those who worship Bhagavan because they are so curious. Bhagavan or God, those who worship Bhagavan or God because they're so curious. And Jnani, those who are realized beings who worship God as their very own self. So these are the different types of devotees. And in chapter 7, we also saw that people have a difficulty of understanding the nature of God. God is infinite, but people see that God is limited to a form or a name or a religion or a path. They limit God. God is unmanifest, but people see God only as manifest. So there's a difficulty understanding God. And the last topic here in chapter 7 said that those who are really, really firm, dridhavrata, those who have a firm vow, they're the ones who realize God. They're the ones who have that ultimate devotion and know God for who God truly is. So chapter 7 ends with 7 things, 7 different topics. They are Brahma, Adhyatma, Karma, Adhibhuta, Adhidaiva, Adhiyajna, and Prayana Kala. They end with these 7 things. So now chapter 8 starts explaining these things. Okay? So don't worry too much about the terms. It'll become very easy when I explain them. First, let's look at the last 2 verses of chapter 7. Okay? So these are the last 2 verses of chapter 7. I'll chant them and then I'll explain them and then we will go to chapter 8. Jara marana mokshaya mamashritya yatantiye te brahma tadviduh kritsnam adhyatmam karma chakhilam. So in chapter 7, verse 29, what happens here is Bhagavan, Krishna, mentions 3 things. And he says, ye. Ye means those, yatanti, those who strive. And how do they strive? Mamashritya, they take refuge in me. And why do they take refuge in me? Jara marana mokshaya. They want liberation from old age and death. They are tired of this life. They want liberation from all of it. And those who really take refuge in me, they know, te tadviduhu. They realize. What do they realize or what do they know? Brahma. So they realize Brahma. Brahma. So this is the first term, Brahma. What else do they realize? Adhyatmam. Kritsnam adhyatmam. They realize this word kritsnam, or kritsnam means in full, so that is to be taken with all. So they realize in full Brahman, that's one. Then they realize in full adhyatmam. Adhyatmam here means the self, the inner self. And we'll look at that a little more closely in chapter 8. And karma. Karma means the entire realm of action. They realize these 3 things. So in chapter 7, verse 29, he mentions Brahma, he mentions Adhyatma and Karma. These 3 terms, right? Those who take refuge in me, they know all of these things. And then in verse number 30, he says, Adhibhuta Adhidaiva mam Adhiyajnam cha ye viduhu Prayana kalepi cha mam te vidur yukta chetasaha. He says that those who know me. Ye viduhu. Those who know me. What? Sadhibhuta. With Adhibhuta. Adhibhuta pertaining to elements. Adhiyajna. Adhiyajna means pertaining to sacrifice. And Adhidaiva pertaining to all the devatas. We will see again these terms in chapter 8. So those who know me in Adhibhuta, Adhidaiva, and Adhiyajna, those who know me in these three ways. Here you'll see it. Adhibhuta, Adhidaiva, Adhiyajna. Prayana kale pichamam. And those who know me at the time of death, viduhu, they yukta chetasaha. They are very steadfast in mind. So those who know me in these ways, Adhibhuta, Adhidaiva, Adhiyajna, they will know me even at the time of death. Even at the time of death, they will know me and their minds will be very, very steadfast in me. This is what it means. So now, here he has now mentioned the four things. Adhibhuta, Adhidaiva, Adhiyajna, and Prayana kala. Prayana kala means at the time of death. So he mentions these 7 things in chapter 7. Okay? So because he mentions now this 7 things in chapter 7, now in chapter 8, Bhagavan Krishna says, I will explain everything to you. But before I explain everything to you, Arjuna, I want to make sure that you really listened. Did you really listen to what I'm saying? So what did I say? So here in the Bhagavad Gita, we can also see how Bhagavan Krishna teaches Arjuna, especially when it comes to all these technical terms. You know, sometimes what happens is it goes over our head and we put a block. This is too much for me now, right? So Bhagavan Krishna can feel that. So chapter 8, he wants to see if Arjuna was really listening. And Arjuna, he starts by questioning all of these terms to Bhagavan Krishna, and then Bhagavan Krishna answers one by one to make everything very clear. Okay? So now we will enter chapter 8. So we are using Puja Gurudev Swami Chinmayanandaji's commentary of chapter 8, the Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita chapter 8 is called Akshara Brahma Yoga. Akshara Brahma Yoga. Akshara means imperishable, and Brahma means that Brahman. So the yoga of the imperishable Brahman. So we'll start, and then Padmini-ji, if you can repeat after me. Om Shri Paramatmane Namaha.
Om Shri Paramatmane Namaha.
Atha Ashtamodhyayaha.
Atha Ashtamodhyayaha.
Akshara Brahma Yogaha.
Akshara Brahma Yogaha.
Arjuna Uvacha.
Arjuna Uvacha.
Kim tad brahma kim adhyatmam.
Kim tad Brahma kim Adhyatmam.
Kim karma purushottama.
Kim karma purushottama.
Adhibhutam cha kim proktam.
Adhibhutam cha kim proktam.
Adhidaivam kim uchyate.
Adhidaivam kim uchyate.
Together. Arjuna uvacha. Kim tad brahma kim adhyatmam. Kim karma purushottama. Adhibhutam cha kim proktam. Adhidaivam kim uchyate. So now Arjuna is asking these questions. He says, you mentioned all of these terms. Now please tell me and define each one of them. So Arjuna Uvacha, chapter 8 starts with Arjuna asking, Kim tad Brahma? What is this Brahman? that you keep talking about. What is Brahman? Kim Adhyatmam. What is Adhyatma? The word Adhyatma. Kim Karma. What is Karma? Also, three things in the first line. O Purushottama, O that supreme being, O Shri Krishna, what are these three things? Adhibhutam. What is Adhibhuta? The fourth thing. Adhibhutam cha kim proktam. Adhidaivam. And what is this Adhidaivam? Kim uchyate. So please tell me, what are these five things? So the first verse, 5 questions he asks. Let us read now the second verse. Adhiyajna katham kotra
Adhyatma katham kotra
Tehesmin madhusudana
Dehesmin madhusudana
Prayana kale cha katham
Prayanakale cha katham
Yeyosi niyatatmabhihi
Jnyosi niyatatmabhihi
Adhiyajna katham kotra Tehesmin madhusudana Prayana kale cha katham Yeyosi niyatatmabhihi. So he says now in the second verse, Adhiyajna. What is that Adhiyajna? Katham. And how? Katham. How is that Adhiyajna? Katham kaha atra dehesmin. How is that Adhiyajna in this body? O Madhusudana, O Shri Krishna, and Prayana kale cha katham. And at the end of this life, Prayana kale, at the end of this life, katham nyeyaha asi, how does one know you? Niyatatma bihi, those self-controlled people, how do they know you? So the next 2 questions are asked in verse 2. So now you can see there's this breakdown of 7. Arjuna was paying attention at the end of chapter 7. He asked the same questions to Bhagavan Krishna, and now Bhagavan Krishna will answer. Now before that, we will just analyze why he wants to be very specific of these terms. So in verse 1, what is Brahman? So many times confusion can come of what is Brahman. When we talk about Brahman, are we talking about Brahman in its nirguna form, Brahman without any name, without any form, without any action? Or are we talking about Brahman expressing with Maya as Ishvara or God? So are we talking about Brahman without name and form, or Brahman expressing through Maya as God? What is that Brahman? Can you tell me very specifically? And Adhyatma, what is the inner self? Who are we really? Are we really this body, mind, and intellect? Are we this jeeva, this individual? Or are we Atman? What is this Adhyatma? This word adhi here means pertaining to. So adhi, Atma becomes Adhyatma. So what is this pertaining to Atma? What is that really? And with karma, Arjuna is also asking, because there's so many things about karma. We learned chapter 3, 4, 5, 6. There's karma sometimes can mean results of action. Karma can sometimes mean action. Karma can sometimes mean reincarnation. So please define this for me very specifically, because, oh Shri Krishna, you have spoken about all of these in so many different contexts. And in Bhagavad Gita, the context is so important. We have to get the word as per the verse, as per the chapter. That meaning is what we have to get. We cannot just say that this means this and that means that all the time. So please define it for me. And Adhibhuta. that which is pertaining to bhuta, the elements. What is that? Adhibhuta. When you say elements, what is it? Is it just the 5 elements? Is it the entire world? What is this Adhibhuta that you're talking about? And Adhidaiva. Adhidaiva, that's pertaining to all of the devatas. What exactly is that? So Arjuna here is really wanting to know specifically for his own clarity, which is also good for us because it gives us clarity. Sometimes we feel like we know everything, but until we get into really real details of each thing, we don't know. So this is an opening in the chapter to force us to think deeply. And then in verse 2, he says, Adhiyajna. What is it? Adhiyajna. What is this term that you're saying, Adhiyajna? Kaha, what is it? And how is that Adhiyajna in this body? Adhyatma here refers to Ishvara or God. How is God expressing in this body? I don't understand this. And when people die, meaning that jeeva leaves the body, when death happens, how is it that people can know you at the time of death? Because death is something that is very uncertain. Nobody knows when they're going to die. Nobody knows. Death is something that just happens. Sometimes it is when people are in the hospital and they're sick for some time, and you can see that slowly life is waning away. Can see that. Sometimes we can see it. But even that, even Hari Om, please mute. Okay. So even when that happens, right? When life is slowly waning away, slowly waning away, we also don't know when that last point is. We don't know. And sometimes death is in such a way that it's sudden. It just like that. Somebody may get a heart attack. Somebody may have gotten into an accident. Somebody may have fallen. So sometimes, just like that, it happens. Sometimes it happens when people are older, which we understand a little bit more. But when it happens when people are younger, it's very difficult. When it happens in a family setting, very hard. So this death, it is so untimely, and it will come to us because nobody escapes out of life alive. Everybody has to go through death. Everybody. So please tell me, Bhagwan, how do I prepare for death? A lot of this chapter actually is about this concept. How do I prepare for death? Meaning, how do I live my life in such a way that I'm always centered in you, that I'm always thinking of you, and so I can leave this world peacefully. I can leave this world without any regrets, any anxiety, any worry. I can leave nicely. You please tell me how to live my life. How is it that people have thought of you? Especially when they are going through such difficulty, such pain, such suffering. How is it that people have thought of you? Explain that to me. So Bhagavan Krishna says, you asked me 7 questions. I will give you the reply to all of these. And now Bhagavan Krishna starts to speak about every one of them. So we will now go to verse number 3. Shri Bhagavan Vacha
श्रीभगवानुवाच
अक्षरं ब्रह्म परमम्
अक्षरं ब्रह्म परमं
स्वभावोऽध्यात्ममुच्यते
स्वभावोऽध्यात्ममुच्यते
भूतभावोद्भवकरः
भूतभावोद्भवकरः
विसर्गः कर्म संज्ञितः
विसर्गकर्मसन्निधः
श्रीभगवानुवाच अक्षरं ब्रह्म परमं स्वभावोऽध्यात्ममुच्यते भूतभावोद्भवकरः विसर्गः कर्म संज्ञितः. So, Shri Bhagavan Uvacha. Bhagavan Krishna now speaks. Bhagavan Krishna speaks. And what does he say? First, he answers, what is Brahman? Question number 1. What is Brahman? Aksharam Brahma Paramam. That Akshara, imperishable Paramam, supreme being, is Brahman. So what is Brahman? Imperishable supreme being, that is Brahman. We'll first see in short answer, then I'll explain each one. Swabhavaha adhyatmam uchyate. And what is adhyatma? What is that which is the self? Swabhavaha. That is your real, the nature of Brahman is that inner self, Adhyatma. The nature of Brahman is Adhyatma. Adhyatma here doesn't mean self-knowledge. Adhyatma here means that inner self, Pratyagatma. The nature of Brahman is that inner self. What is karma? Karma sanyitaha. Sanyitaha means this is called karma. What is called karma? Visarga. Visarga means a sacrifice. Sacrifice, offering, letting go. Bhuta bhava udbhava karaha. That visarga, that sacrifice or that offering, which udbhava karaha, which causes Bhuta bhava, the origin of all beings or the existence of all beings, that is called karma. Okay, so 3 things. So let us go one by one. So when we say this word akshara, it's a very, very beautiful and deep word. And I just want you to think about it. The title of this chapter is also akshara. Kshara means that which decays, that which perishes. Now think about our life. Think about all of the things that we have. All of it is kshara, perishing. So the homes that we have, kshara, right? The heating will conk out, the plumbing will conk out, all kinds of things will happen. This is breaking, that's breaking, and the house has to be fixed because it's kshara, it's perishing. Our jobs, our careers. So at some point in time, we are doing very well, but at some point in time also now, that job description is no more because there's AI. Because also kshara, a job description is no more, or that position is not there anymore, or we have to move into a different department, or we have to go into a new team. Kshara. Our family and our relationships also decaying. People around us, they're moving. There's loss of life, loss of community. There's a loss. So around us in the world, everything is perishing. Everything is perishing. And that is a natural law. If we leave something out on the table, in a few days, it will just perish. Right? You leave a banana or an apple outside, we don't do anything with it. In 5 days or 6 days, it perishes. Kshara. So the nature of this world is it's perishing. Even if we don't do anything, it perishes. Huh? And money also, if we don't do anything, because of inflation, the value is perishing. It's perishing. Now, coming to ourselves, our bodies are also kshara, they are perishing. Day by day, they are perishing. Old age is something nobody has to work for. It comes very naturally. Huh? It just happens, as I said. The nature of the world is this kshara. Perishing just happens. The graying of the hair, we don't need it, it just happens. Graying of the hair, the slowing down of the body, the loss of the teeth, the loss of hearing, memory, it just happens naturally. And when we come to our memory or thoughts, it also decays. We're not able to remember what did we do last week. Bhagavad Gita, we just studied 7 chapters. What did we study? Kshara, decaying also, right? So this is also decaying. Our memory decaying, body decaying. And even our identity, our personality, it's perishing. Constantly changing, constantly perishing. At first, we felt very valuable to somebody, and now we're nobody. One of our Swamijis said that, to somebody you may be the world, but really you are just a word. We're just a word, right? We're just a word. This is individuality, it's just a word. So everything around us is perishing. But there's only one thing that is imperishable. Akshara, imperishable. That's called Brahman. And Brahman means that Sat Chit Ananda, that pure existence. Not existence of something, not existence of the mind, of the body, of the intellect, but pure existence. Pure consciousness, not conscious of a thought or conscious of seeing something or conscious of hearing something, but pure consciousness. And Ananda or Ananta, that pure existence or consciousness which is unlimited, infinite. That Sat Chit Ananda, unlimited, pure existence, consciousness, and that's why it is supreme, that's called Brahman. So that in you, in me, that substratum of the world which never decays, which is absolute existence, awareness, that's called Brahman. Imperishable. That's called Brahman. And the most beautiful thing is the nature of Brahman is our own self, Adhyatma. So first, Brahman is the substratum of the world, but remember that substratum of the world, that essence of that is also the essence of I, essence of you, essence of me. So our essence, that Brahman which appears in the individual is called Adhyatma. So Adhyatma, to be very specific, is that Brahman with respect to the individual is called Adhyatma. Brahman with respect to the individual, Adhyatma. Like it's the same space. There's pot space and total space. That pot space is called Adhyatma. That total space is called Brahman. So my real nature is that. Beyond the body, beyond the mind, beyond the intellect, beyond the ego, my real nature is Brahman. And this is a very, very beautiful thing that we can hold on to. This is what makes all of our saints and sages so fearless, because they know that they can never be perishable. They know that even if the body goes, even if the mind, the memory deteriorates, even if nobody pays attention to them, even if everybody forgets them, even if no one says anything to them, no one acknowledges them, it's okay, because their real nature is Brahman. That gives people a lot of strength. Real nature is Brahman. So, Brahman with respect to the individual is Adhyatma. So, two terms he has explained. Now, what is this karma? Now, here a very beautiful meaning is given. Karma here means sacrifice. Visarga. Visarga literally means, like letting go. Tyaga, letting go, sacrificing, dropping. So karma is this act of letting go or sacrificing. Letting go of what? Letting go of our selfishness. That is real action. You see, whenever people work together or do things together with their own selfish agenda or selfish motive, then that action is not transformative. That action causes a lot of chaos. It causes disharmony. It causes, like agitation. So whenever action has this individual selfishness or personal agenda, or somebody has something that they want to do, or valuing their likes over everybody else, when we constantly try to assert our individuality in action, that action only destroys. It creates disharmony. But when we come together and we let go of our individual likes and dislikes, we let go of our own agendas, we let go of our selfishness, we let go of all of that for a higher purpose, for a higher vision, that is called real action, because that's transformative. So real action is about letting go. And that's why, people are scared. Now I had to go for a youth camp. And with youth camp, and lots of youngsters were there, and their question is they want to meet somebody, and they want to get married and everything like that, but they're afraid, they don't want to make too many compromises, and so all kinds of things. Everybody now has fear of commitment, because everybody's afraid. So I had explained to them that our culture is about letting go of the individual. The culture in other places may be about stressing that I am an individual, I am this, I am that. In Sanatana Dharma, ours is to shrink our individuality and merge with totality. To shrink our likes and dislikes, to shrink all of that, because we find a greater identity not in the individual, but in merging with the total. And that's where true action lies. So the ability to let go of our individuality and merge with totality, that is called karma. That is called action. And very beautifully in chapter 3, I know it's eons ago when we saw chapter 3, but it's said there that if we want to see Bhagwan, if we want to see God, people say, I want to see God here and now. So some great upasakas, or those who really contemplate, maybe God will appear in a form. To those who have knowledge of the self, God is the essence of the self. But if somebody says, I want to see God here and now, how will I see God? God expresses in the act of sacrifice. In the act of this sacrifice, whenever the individual sacrifices themselves for a total, that action is an expression of God. So we don't have to do years of upasana or contemplation to see God. See God here and now in the beauty of action. So this letting go, whenever we're able to let go, to sacrifice, what happens is bhuta bhava udbhavakaraha. Udbhavakaraha. It causes bhuta bhava, the origin of all beings. It causes transformation in the world. That is called karma, right? So we have seen 3 terms. So clear? What is Brahman? That existence, consciousness, bliss. What is Adhyatma? That Brahman in the individual, that is Adhyatma. Sometimes we call it Pratyagatma or Atma. And what is karma? Sacrifice, letting go. Now, let's see the other terms that Bhagavan Krishna is explaining. 4th verse now. Adhibhutam ksharo bhavaha
Adhibodam ksharo bhavaha
purushashchadhidaivatam
Purushaschadidaivatam
adhiyajnyohamevatra
Adhyatnyohamevatra
dehe dehabhritambara
Dehe dehabhritamvara
Adhibhutam ksharo bhavaha purushashchadhidaivatam adhiyajnyohamevatra dehe dehabhritambara. So let us see this just in brief first. Adhibhutam. Adhibhuta means pertaining to elements. Adhibhuta ksharaha bhavaha is my perishable nature. Adhibhuta is my perishable nature. Purushaha means that which dwells everywhere. Purusha is Adhidaivatam, is Adhidaiva. Adhiyajna, aham. I myself am Adhiyajna. Aham eva. I alone am Adhiyajna. Where atra dehe, in this very body, I alone am Adhiyajna. Deha bhritambara. And he tells, O Arjuna, you are the best of the embodied beings. So now, what does this mean? So now going to the 4th term, Adhibhuta. So Adhibhuta literally means that anything that is perishable. So we talked about perishable also earlier. Whatever is perishable, that is Adhibhuta. And remember, that also is in the substratum of Bhagwan, right? In chapter 7, we saw that mataha parataram na anyat kinchidasti dhananjaya. There's nothing other than me. I am that string of existence, consciousness, bliss upon which the world appears. So here, all of this appearing, this body, this mind, this intellect, this world, all of it is also Bhagavan because all of it is appearing in Bhagavan. So he says all these perishable things, the world, the body, the mind, the intellect, everything that's perishing or perishable, that is my Adhibhuta. That is my nature also. Adhibhuta. Pertaining to elements. That's my perishable nature. So if you want the translation of Adhibhuta, my perishable nature. This is all me. This is all me also appearing. Adhibhuta. Now, he says, Adhidaiva. Adhidaiva. Adhidaiva here means this term called Hiranyagarbha. I know some of you might not have heard this term, so I'll just explain it very simply and briefly, that pure consciousness, okay, that pure consciousness, Brahman, when expressing through Maya, expresses as Ishvara or God. So Brahman with Maya expresses as Ishvara or God. Now in our Shastra, to define God, there's three different levels. One is called that consciousness with the power of Maya, which is associated with all of the gross world, gross bodies, gross matter, that is called Virat. That consciousness expressing through Maya, associated with all of the subtle bodies, subtle minds, subtle intellects, is called Hiranyagarbha. So we can call it cosmic mind. And that consciousness with the power of Maya, associating with all the total vasanas, is called Ishvara. So with the associating with the total gross world, it's called Virat. Total subtle world is called Hiranyagarbha. Total causal world is called Ishvara. And sometimes all three are also called Ishvara. Okay? So here the word Adhidaiva means Hiranyagarbha, or that cosmic mind. So what is the translation of Adhidaiva? Cosmic mind. That's how you understand it. Bhagwan, he says, I express through the total mind, the cosmic mind in this whole universe. That's also one of my natures, Bhagwan says. So that Adhidaiva is Purusha, that cosmic mind. Now coming to Adhiyajna, says Adhiyajna is me. Now Adhiyajna here means Bhagwan is saying, God is saying, Adhiyajna is me who is in everyone's bodies. Who's in everyone's bodies? What do we mean here? Now this Adhiyajna is this term called Antaryami. Okay? What that means is that consciousness expressing through totality as Ishvara, that voice of God is in you. Now this is one level we talked about as Brahman. This Adhiyajna is Ishvara, or what we call Antaryami. It is the voice of God. What do you mean by voice of God? What I mean is this. Many times we have questions. Now, what do I do with my life? What's the next step? What's the best decision to take? Where do I go from here? How do I handle this? How do we deal with all kinds of questions that come up? And all of these questions, they're not easy all the time. Sometimes they're in our minds for days and days, sometimes years even. When we sit quietly, so we don't need, our culture is very beautiful. We actually don't need to talk to anybody for advice. We don't need to call anybody. In our Sanatana Dharma, our best friend is God, is Bhagwan. All we do is just sit quietly. That's all. Sit quietly. Find your space in your puja room, in your altar. You sit quietly. When we sit quietly, when all the noise goes away, in that quietude, we are connected to Ishvara, or totality. And in that quietude, there's a direct connection with Ishvara. That's why they say the sound of silence is the voice of God. That's called Antaryami, the voice of God. In that silence, everything is revealed. How to handle the situation, Where do we have to go? What do we have to do? In that silence, everything is revealed. And the reason is because in that silence, that mind, that individual mind is directly connected to the total mind. When the mind is silent, the individual mind is directly connected to the total mind, and everything you need to know will come to you. That is called Adhiyajna. How to translate Adhyatma? Ishvara Antaryami, the voice of God. The voice of God. He says, Bhagavan says, I am in your body. I am in your body. Why are you looking out for me? Why are you calling this person, calling that person, Googling here, Googling that? Why? Just close your eyes and sit quietly. And when you sit quietly, you connect directly to me. And in that connection, what you need to know, you will know. That is called Adhiyajna. So in this way, Bhagavan Krishna says, O Arjuna, I have answered 6 of your questions. The rest of the chapter, I'll answer the 7th question. But these 6 is very important because slowly we will understand why he took so much pain to explain these 6. So I'll just summarize these 6 terms in brief and then we will close. Okay? So first term, we saw Brahma. What is Brahma? Existence, consciousness, bliss. Second term, Adhyatma. What is Adhyatma? That Brahman with respect to the individual, or in that Brahman in me. That Brahman in me is called Adhyatma. What is karma? Karma is sacrifice. Sacrificing all of our individuality for the greater good. What is Adhibhuta? Adhibhuta is everything that is perishing. My perishable nature. Everything that you see is perishing is Adhibhuta. It also exists in me. What is Adhidaiva? Adhidaiva means the cosmic mind or Hiranyagarbha. That is also an expression of Bhagavan, the cosmic mind, the total mind. And what is Adhiyajna? Bhagavan says Adhiyajna is me, Ishvara, that God, that Antaryami, that inner voice, that is me. And please know, inner voice is not instinct. Instinct just happens like that. This is very different. This is not instinct. This is the inner voice of intuition. All right. So with this, we have seen these verses, and then next week we will see the rest of the 7th thing. At the time of death, how do I think of you? We will see that elaboration. All right. So we'll see the closing prayer, and then I have one announcement, and then if there are any questions, we can take that up. Okay. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.